Houlihan again with the planning board, and what I'd like to do today is I'm going to run through the clean energy infrastructure part of the industrial park bylaw so that you are familiar with what it is that we are proposing on town meeting floor on Saturday, April 11th. So let me first share the article. This is warrant article number 17. And so you'll see that the article, in fact, is asking for us to delete the current town code. Please see the first video where I go through all the specifics on what's currently in town code and what we're adding. This is the actual warrant article. And so we'll delete that IP section and replace it with this, and then we will add data centers to special permitting section. So that'll be a third video that I'll make in this series. Today, I want to focus on the clean energy infrastructure. So the Massachusetts, let me just increase my screen so you can see this okay. So Massachusetts has put a small clean energy infrastructure bylaw in place, and we as towns must follow that. So we're using the draft guidance from the state to be able to modify our own. And as you know, local government can add a little bit more criteria onto the state criteria. This was important to me and my fellow planning board members because we wanted to protect Southborough in the case where we have a proponent that wants to develop and place a small clean energy infrastructure. We wanted to put the control in the town's hands and not in the proponent. So we've included this bylaw in this IP district. So this is pretty intensive. And so what we first say here in highlighting is it must meet the requirements of any applicable Massachusetts regulation for small clean energy infrastructure siting and permitting. So before you can even come to our town, you have to make sure that you've met the state obligations. And that's applicable to facilities as defined in Mass General Law, and I cite the law, with a rated capacity of less than 100 megawatt hours. And that's how clean energy infrastructure are measured. And it's really in the amount of energy emitted. It's not necessarily in the footprint of the building size. It's really in what the capacity of the energy is that it's creating. So we've limited that to 100 megawatt hours. And that includes any ancillary structure that is an integral part of the operation of that small clean energy facility. So that's the first part, is that we require you to go to the state and make sure you meet that requirements. Here in Southborough, we've added the footprint that the area of land and water encompassed by a small clean energy equipment, plus any land significantly impacted by construction of the small clean energy facility, including but not limited to land altered for clearing, grading, and roadways. So when you're thinking about putting that in, that is all inclusive in what we will measure and consider as a planning board. The next is setbacks. So notwithstanding the standard setbacks for this district, any portion of a building, structure, or use located on a lot that abuts a residential or conservation district shall maintain a minimum setback of 1,000 feet from the district and/or property boundary. So most boundaries are about 100 feet. We've tenfold, right? We've put that to 1,000 feet because these are a bit invasive. And so we want to make sure that we're protecting the residential and conservation lands around any energy infrastructure that comes into Southborough. Next, fire and life safety. So we require that they comply with regulations associated with fire and life safety, and that the approval of the fire chief or the designee is required prior to issuance of a building permit, and that we require annual fire department training. So we want to make sure our fire team knows how to handle any emergency that occurs, and that we are made sure that we've defined what good looks like from our fire department. Next is emergency operations. They must submit an emergency operations plan to the fire department and health department, which includes system specifications, hazard mitigation measures, and a 24-hour emergency contact. This must be updated annually or whenever there's a significant change made to the facility. Again, protecting our town to make sure that if there is an emergency, our health department and fire department have a mitigation plan for that. Next is site security and screening. You must enclose the facility with security fencing and provide access controls, signage, and visual screening. And visual screening certainly means by landscaping and ensuring that there is something that is not unsightly, but affects the impact of the neighborhoods. A decommissioning plan. This is the final part of the energy infrastructure. And this is really important because if an energy infrastructure is placed in your town and 25 years later the energy infrastructure changes and we have a new system of energy and they want to change that over, you have to take down the existing infrastructure. We want to make sure that that decommissioning plan has been established and that they are very clear on what needs to happen. Additionally, we would require that submission is a detailed removal of what needs to happen and how they'll restore the land after they decommission it. So the plan shall include a fully inclusive itemized estimate of the cost of removal and site restoration prepared by a qualified engineer, which does cost them money, and shall be updated at the request of the planning board. As a condition of site plan approval, the applicant shall submit a decommissioning cost estimate prepared by a qualified engineer. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the owner-operator shall provide in a form acceptable to the town a decommissioning agreement that is adequately secured by a surety bond, cash deposit, tripartite agreement, or other instrument provided by the planning board. And that is not to exceed 125% of the estimated decommissioning and site restorations. Finally, the amount and form may be reviewed and adjusted by the planning board not greater than 5-year intervals to reflect inflation and any updated cost estimates. Again, this puts protection on our town so that we are not paying for decommissioning of a site and that it is covered. So that is the clean energy infrastructure section, which is section C6. Uses permitted by right up to 50,000 gross square feet. That is in compliance with Mass General Law, which allows by right small clean energy infrastructure development. Hope that's helpful for you. And I will create a third video on our data center and what that means.